from The Boys delivering one of the most disappointing finales in recent history,
Please, I'll do anything.
to Breaking Bad delivering an ending so satisfying, people are still talking about it over a decade later. This is how a final episode determines the legacy of the show. And speaking of The Boys, that's exactly where we're starting. If you've been living under a rock, The Boys is a show about a ragtag crew of misfits who decided to take on the most powerful supes on the planet. And more specifically, they're trying to stop Homelander, a Superman-type character with a key difference being Homelander is a narcissistic man-child who thinks almond milk is the worst thing ever. And let's just say, he prefers to get his milk from the source. For 5 seasons, fans watched and waited for the moment Butcher and his crew would finally bring him down. And when the finale arrived, the reaction was not what anyone expected. The finale opens with the boys mourning the death of Frenchie, and from that point, the whole thing is building toward one thing: getting into the White House and stopping Homelander before his live televised address to the nation. The crew fights their way through the tunnels. Mother's Milk takes out Oh Father with a ball gag of all things, and Annie blasts the deep into the ocean where sea creatures finish the job. And when they finally corner Homelander, Kimiko strips away his abilities completely, and Butcher beats him into a bloody mess with his bare hands, then finally drives a crowbar through his skull on live television.
No, and this is for my beggar.
On paper, that sounds like everything fans wanted, and honestly, the death itself was well received, because watching the most powerful soup in the world cry and beg for his life was the exact ending Homelander deserved, but everything around it is what caused the backlash. The biggest issue was the build-up versus the payoff, because the entire final season had been centered around Homelander injecting himself with V1, a compound Sister Sage described as 10 times more powerful than Compound V, which already made him the most dangerous soup alive. So the final fight should have been an absolute nightmare for the boys. But instead, Homelander showed up, barely able to fly, his laser eyes doing nothing to people they had previously cut clean in half. And the same guy who grabbed someone and flew them into space just a few scenes earlier suddenly couldn't fly away when his life depended on it. And fans were not letting that go. The whole season had also been marketed as a scorched earth finale, where Homelander would burn down the world. But none of that actually happened, and fans felt the show pulled every single punch it promised to throw. The ending was so bad that people even started creating their own versions with AI.
Wow. Absolutely spectacular. Let's give a big round of applause for our brave little heroes, shall we?
After he dies, Butcher tries to release a virus that would wipe out every soup on the planet, but Huey shoots him to stop it, and Butcher dies forgiving him, which was actually one of the few moments people praised. But by the time the credits rolled, the overwhelming feeling was that a show which had once been one of the most exciting things on television had ended not with the bang it promised, but with a quiet, rushed, disappointing whimper, which will forever leave its legacy permanently damaged. Breaking Bad, on the other hand, did the exact opposite. It delivered an ending so clean and so satisfying that people still talk about it over a decade later. Breaking Bad follows Walter White, a chemistry teacher turned meth cook, who spends 5 seasons becoming the most dangerous man in Albuquerque, while convincing himself he's doing it for his family. And by the time Felina aired, fans had watched Walt destroy everything around him, and were desperate to see how it all ended. And what they got is still considered one of the greatest finales ever made. Felina opens with Walt on the run in New Hampshire, broke and dying, but making one last decision to go back home and finish what he started. He manipulates Gretchen and Elliot into setting up a trust fund for his son using the last of his money, threatening them with hitmen who turn out to be just Badger and Skinny Pete holding laser pointers.
Don't move, don't dare move a muscle.
And honestly, that got me the first time I watched it too. That's exactly the kind of cold, ruthless Walt move fans have been waiting for the whole season to see again. He then meets Skyler one last time and admits for the first time that everything he did was not for the family, but for himself, because it made him feel alive.
I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. I was alive.
And that single moment of honesty after 5 seasons of lies became one of the most talked about scenes in the entire show. From there, he rigs an M60 to the trunk of his car, drives to Jack's compound where Jesse is being held prisoner, and triggers it remotely, wiping out the entire gang before finishing off Jack himself. And of course, it would not be a proper ending without one last moment between Walt and Jesse. And this scene right here is honestly one of the greatest moments in television history.
Say the words! Say you want this! Nothing happens until I hear you say it.
I want this.
As Jesse gets to drive away into the night while Walt dies alone on the floor of the meth lab with a smile on his face, surrounded by the very thing that led him down this path. What made fans love this ending so deeply was how honest it was. Because Walt did not get a redemption, and he did not get a clean punishment either. He got exactly what he wanted. And honestly, what he deserved. This is a finale so good that over a decade later, it's still the one that every other show gets compared to. And that's a legacy that does not fade. But while Breaking Bad gave fans an ending that felt earned, Stranger Things spent 9 years building to a finale that left the majority of its fans feeling cheated. When Stranger Things dropped its first season in 2016, it immediately became one of the biggest cultural moments on television. A creepy show about a group of kids in Hawkins, Indiana, who stumble onto something terrifying lurking in the Upside Down. And 9 years and 5 seasons later, the show came to an end. But the response was not the emotional farewell that kind of loyalty deserved. The finale brings everyone together for one last run into the Upside Down to take down Vecna. The battle itself is actually decent enough, except for the fact there were no Demogorgons in sight, with Eleven fighting him inside his own mind, while the rest of the group goes after his physical form. Joyce finishing him off with an axe to the head. But the moment that had everyone talking was what happened to Eleven. Because after destroying the Upside Down, she appears to sacrifice herself at the gate. And the show then spends the rest of its runtime in a long epilogue where everyone graduates, and Mike eventually theorizes that Eleven survived somehow through Callie's powers and escaped to live peacefully somewhere far away. The problem fans had was that the show refused to commit to anything definitive, and people were furious that after 9 years, the writers could not even decide whether their main character lived or died, giving both camps just enough to believe whatever ending they wanted. I still remember being actually terrified watching Stranger Things. Take for example this scene from season 1, where Hopper goes to Joyce's house after finding a bug.
I am gonna murder.
And by the end of it had become a show where none of the main characters were ever in real danger. Vecna got defeated in about 8 minutes, and the show was so afraid of upsetting anyone that it played it completely safe right until the final frame. One viewer put it perfectly by saying, it's easy to dislike something you never wanted to like, but a lot harder to dislike something you once loved. And that single line captures exactly what makes this bad finale so damaging. Because it doesn't just disappoint you, it makes you question whether the whole journey was worth it in the first place. But Better Call Saul doesn't have that problem, because its ending proved to be one of the most daring finales ever put on television. Now, Better Call Saul is one of those shows that nobody asked for, and everybody ended up loving. Because on paper, a spin-off prequel about Saul Goodman sounds like the kind of cash grab that ruins legacies. But instead, it spent 6 seasons telling one of the most quietly devastating character stories on television. And by the time the finale arrived, the show had already surpassed Breaking Bad in the eyes of a lot of fans. And then it went even further and delivered an ending worthy of everything that came before it. The finale picks up with Jimmy getting caught hiding in a dumpster in Omaha after his Gene Takovic cover is blown. And what follows is something nobody expected, because instead of wriggling out of his situation, the way he always has, Jimmy completely falls apart in the courtroom and confesses to everything. His role in Walt's empire, his part in Chuck's death, all of it. And in doing so throws away a negotiated 7-year deal in exchange for 86 years in a maximum security prison. The moment he stands up and insists on being called Jimmy McGill and not Saul Goodman.
It was.
Mr. Goodman, sit down and stay seated.
The name's McGill. I'm James McGill.
Is the first time in years the real Jimmy has shown his face, and it comes at the cost of everything. Kim visits him in prison at the end, and the two share a cigarette before she leaves, and Jimmy sends her off with his signature finger guns. And that tiny gesture says more about who those two people are and what they meant to each other than any speech ever could. What fans loved about this ending was how honest it was, because Jimmy did not get a traditional redemption, and he did not escape his consequences. He simply chose to be himself one last time and face what that meant. And people online immediately pointed out that where Walt died as Heisenberg and Jesse got away, Jimmy McGill went to prison as himself. And the poetry of that contrast across the whole franchise is something the fan base is still picking apart years later. Next up is a show I know you've heard of, because everyone, and I mean everyone, was mad about how it ended. Game of Thrones was not just a TV show. It was a lifestyle, a show so epic, so massive and so well written in its early seasons that it genuinely changed what people thought television could be. And then somewhere around the time D&D ran out of George R.R. Martin's books to adapt, something went very wrong. The finale deals with the fallout from Daenerys burning King's Landing to the ground in the episode before, and Jon ends up killing her in the throne room because Tyrion convinced him she'd become too dangerous to let live.
Pile up all the bodies of all the people they ever killed. There still won't be half as many as our beautiful queen slaughtered in a single day.
Since you left her note.
This and the destruction of Westeros became the single most mocked decision in television history. Later in the episode, the lords and ladies of Westeros elect Bronn as king, a character who'd spent the entire final season sitting in his wheelchair saying he didn't want to be king, and honestly was never set up to be one. Then all of a sudden he is.
All hail Bran the Broken, first of his name, King of the Andals and the First Men, Lord of the Six Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm.
While Jon gets exiled beyond the Wall, again, Sansa becomes Queen of the North, and Arya sails off to explore uncharted lands. And the whole thing wraps up in about 80 minutes, feeling less like the conclusion of one of the greatest shows ever made, and more like someone was just in a very big hurry to get it over with. The thing that hurt fans the most was not any single decision, but the fact that everything the show had spent years building got thrown away in the rush to finish, and the character assassination of Daenerys alone, going from one of the most beloved characters in the show to a mass murderer with almost no believable buildup, became a textbook example of how not to handle a character arc. Fans pointed out that Stannis burned one child alive, and it was a decision built up across multiple episodes. So Daenerys torching an entire city because she lost one of her closest allies, although it must have hurt, simply did not make sense. As a result, it will probably forever be known, not for the many good things it did, but only as the show with the worst ending in television history. Hopefully HBO learned from their mistakes and doesn't repeat them in their new shows, because I don't think Game of Thrones fans are known for being very forgiving. Next, we have Succession, which showed everyone that the right ending can elevate a good show into a masterpiece. Succession is a show about one of the richest families in the world tearing itself apart over who gets to inherit Logan Roy's media empire after his death. And if that sounds dry, the fact that it became one of the most celebrated shows of the last decade tells you everything. The finale had one of the highest bars of any show in recent memory, and somehow cleared it. It all comes down to one board meeting, where Kendall, Shiv, and Roman have to decide whether to block a deal that would hand the company over to Matsson. And for most of the episode, it looks like Kendall is finally going to get what he's been chasing his whole life. The siblings even share a rare moment of genuine warmth in their mother's kitchen in Barbados, joking around and pouring smoothie on Kendall's head like actual brothers and sisters. And for a brief second, you actually believe they might pull it off. But then Shiv switches her vote at the last second.
Think about what? Whether you want us to keep the company or hand it over to Tom and that piece of shit who killed our dad?
I might have changed my mind.
What the fuck?
And just like that, Kendall loses everything. Roman walks away from it all, and Tom, the guy who nobody ever took seriously, ends up as CEO. The final image is Kendall sitting alone on the beach staring at the water. And then, the screen goes black. What made this landing so satisfying was how inevitable it felt looking back, because the whole show had always been telling you these people were never serious enough to actually win. And Roman even says it out loud, calling himself and his siblings bullshit, and people online agreed that was the realest line of the entire show. The ending gave everyone exactly what the show had been promising since episode 1. And that's why Succession walked away with its legacy, not just intact, but elevated. But while Succession sticks its landing perfectly, Dexter is a completely different story. And honestly, one of the most painful ones on this list. Dexter follows Dexter Morgan, a blood spatter analyst for Miami Metro who moonlights as a serial killer with one rule: he only kills other killers. And that premise somehow produced 4 of the greatest seasons of television in the 2000s, before the show ran out of ideas, and delivered one of the worst finales ever made. The finale opens with Dexter scrambling to get out of Miami with Harrison and Hannah ahead of a hurricane. But everything falls apart when Deb gets shot and ends up brain dead after a blood clot during surgery, and Dexter blames himself, pulls her off life support, takes her body out to sea, and then drives his boat straight into the hurricane. The police find the wreckage and declare him dead, and the final scene reveals Dexter is very much alive, working at a lumber company in Oregon, sitting alone in a small wooden cabin, staring blankly at the camera. And it's so absurd and so disconnected from everything the show built that it immediately became one of the most mocked moments in television history. Fans were furious on every level, because not only did the show kill off Deb with a blood clot during routine surgery after she survived 8 seasons on a show full of serial killers, but Dexter got 0 consequences for anything he ever did and just walked away to become a lumberjack. Even Michael C. Hall himself later admitted it was one of the most unsatisfying finales of all time. The show went on 3 or 4 seasons longer than it needed to, and burned through all its goodwill getting there. And the general consensus was that it should have ended after the Trinity Killer in season 4. The finale did not just fail the show, it made people question why they spent 8 years watching it in the first place. And that's one of the most damaging things a finale can ever do. But while Dexter left everyone feeling cheated, The Big Bang Theory proved that sometimes the simplest ending is the most satisfying one. The Big Bang Theory ran for 12 seasons, over 270 episodes, as one of the most watched sitcoms in American television history. The kind of comfort food show people put on after a long day and immediately feel at home in. And when it ended in 2019, the question was whether it could stick the landing after all that time, and for the most part, the answer was yes. The 2-part finale centers on Sheldon and Amy winning the Nobel Prize in physics and the whole group flying to Stockholm for the ceremony, with the usual chaos along the way. Howard and Bernadette, nervous wrecks, leaving their kids for the first time. Raj ending up seated next to Sarah Michelle Gellar on the plane, and nobody believing him. And Penny quietly revealing she's pregnant, even though she spent years saying she did not want children, which was the one moment that got consistent pushback. But the heart of the whole thing is Sheldon's acceptance speech. Because instead of delivering the long, self-congratulatory monologue he'd been working on since childhood, he throws it away, and thanks his friends one by one, telling them he loves him.
I love you all. And I love you. Thank you.
And for a character who spent 12 seasons being the most self-absorbed person in every room, that landed exactly the way it needed to. The episode ends with the whole gang eating takeout together in the apartment, the way they always have. Sheldon and Amy still wearing their Nobel medals.
Nearly 14 billion years ago, expansion started. Wait.
And an acoustic version of the theme song plays them out. People pointed out that Penny was wearing the same shirt she wore when she first knocked on their door in the pilot, and the general feeling was that the show went out exactly the way it should have. The one consistent complaint was that Raj ended the series completely single with no closure on his love life, which after 12 seasons felt like the show simply forgot about him. But a finale that makes you wish there was more is always better than one that makes you wish there was less. It did not end with a bang, it ended with a big bang. And after 12 years, all it took was one last play of that theme song to close the book on one of television's most beloved shows. This is my first video, so if you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe. And when the next video is available, make sure you check that out too. My name's Luke, and I'll see you in the next one.